The Browns fighting just to get into the playoffs. If they make it, can they win it all? First Take follows at 10 a.m. Eastern. Meanwhile, let's go back to the Browns for a second. Adam Schefter back with us. And Adam, I just wanted to make sure we spent some time on this and talked about the most recent news with the Cleveland Browns. Tell us the latest.
Well, Ryan, essentially the Cleveland Browns have shut their facility again this morning after 2 more players tested positive. That now brings the number of players who have tested positive over the last week to 5. There have been 6 people in the Browns organization altogether, by my count, that have tested positive. 5 players, 1 staff member. The facility is closed today. Now, of the 2 positive tests that came back today, 1 was from a player who was in isolation, who was a close contact to somebody who had the virus. So they are not concerned about that particular individual spreading to other people within the organization. The 4 wide receivers that were declared out last week against the Jets as high-risk close contacts are eligible to rejoin the team if and when the facility reopens and the team gets to practice next. But at a time where the Cleveland Browns are preparing to play the Pittsburgh Steelers and trying to secure their first playoff spot in nearly 2 decades, they're also dealing with an outbreak here of COVID, and it becomes a very challenging situation for a team that is in the midst of its most important football week in nearly 2 decades, having to combat the virus. And it's so typical in this year where the NFL hasn't had to cancel a single game, not one, that in the final week of the regular season, where the league has not had to introduce a Week 18, where the league has not had to push back the Super Bowl just yet, where the league has not had to do all that much juggling, the Cleveland Browns are now dealing with the COVID issues that they are and hoping to control and contain that virus so the team can reopen its facility, get back to work, and try to concentrate on securing its first playoff spot in nearly 2 decades.
Such a tricky situation. Lewis, want to bring you back in. What do you think?
Yeah, this is just very typical of 2020, very typical of 2020 as it relates to the NFL. And it's gonna make for a very unique week of preparation for the Browns in, as Adam already articulated, in what is their most important week of preparation that they've had in years, in more than a decade, in more than 2 decades. And I mean, just think about this: when they're getting back some of their key components for a divisional showdown with the Steelers, namely the wide receiver group, now they can't get on the football field. Now they can't put into place a nice, solid, rock solid plan against a divisional opponent that they have struggled with and that they need to go ahead and conquer in order to get into the playoffs. So it just makes the mountain that they're trying to climb all the more formidable. Kevin Stefanski, though, having talked to him in our production calls earlier this year, is up to the task. This is a guy who is extremely well prepared and detailed. I think they're built the right way as far as how they are a run-centric football team, and they will rely on the people in the trenches in order to score points. And I still think they're going to come out on top, although this is going to be a heck of a challenge. I'm just hope they're able to make it to Sunday, get on the football field, and go ahead and claim their spot in the playoff race, because I think they've earned it this year.
Well, the degree of difficulty just keeps getting harder and harder for these Cleveland Browns. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is going to give him a pass because he don't even know how dumb that was. You were the #1 overall pick in the draft. Well, if somebody has to go, it's going to be you. Wait, no, let me finish.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
With that comes the expectation that you're going to have a QBR better than 5. Get that. Hold on. I'm not even listening. I anticipate this getting ugly.
Time now for the Chronicles of Riddick. Look at him looking smooth right there, Mr. Louis Riddick. Perfect matching tie. Handkerchief, man, he makes it happen.
I try, Ron. I try.
No, you always do. You don't have to try. It just happens. But let's go through some of the hot games from the weekend and what you're looking for. Let's start with the Steelers and the Browns.
Yeah, we've been talking about it all morning long, and this is a big one for Baker Mayfield. No question about it. Is on the line. His receiving core is back on track to play, provided that the game goes off without any delays. I like how this offensive line is playing. I like the fact that it is a football that then leads into the play-action passing game. And I like, if they can get ahead, I like what this defensive front could get, led by Myles Garrett. And so Baker Mayfield is someone who this week has a great opportunity in front of him.
Now, what about the Packers and the Bears?
Yeah, this is another play and you're in type of situation for the Chicago Bears that have come back from really the brink of just disaster to now be able to control their own destiny. And for Mitch Trubisky, who didn't have his fifth-year option picked up, this is a guy who now is benefiting from Matt Nagy basically changing the entire philosophy as far as their offensive structure and how they call plays. This is very much so an offense that looks like the LA Rams, looks like the San Francisco 49ers, and Mitch Trubisky has to play well this week to get in.
And speaking of the Rams, what about the Rams and the Cardinals?
Yeah, this is another team that right now needs to play their way in, and they need to play in without their starting quarterback in Jared Goff, who has the injured right hand injury to his thumb. And John Wolford is going to have to make his first start ever in NFL, his first appearance ever in an NFL game. They're beat up at the running back position. So for Sean McVay, this is going to have to be his best coaching job of 2020 overall if they're going to get into the playoffs.
I mean, right there, that is sneaky, enormous news. Take a look at this. Week 14, the Rams had a 99.9% chance to make the playoffs. And I was just looking this up. Here we are a few weeks later, and they're starting John Wolford. Hadn't started a game since playing for the Arizona Hotshots of the AAF. And that's what they're going. And I'm not trying to knock him. I'm just saying, Lewis, this is an incredible situation.
Yeah, it really is. It's a heck of a challenge. Look, I think Sean McVay, though, has articulated very adamantly that this team believes in John Wolford, that they think that he's going to be someone who catches a lot of people by surprise. This defense, led by defensive coordinator Brandon Staley, is going to have to carry some short fields, create some turnovers. It's a heck of a challenge against the Arizona Cardinals. We'll see if John Wolford and Sean McVay's team is up to it.
Now, you were talking, I want to get back to Mitchell Trubisky and the Bears. You were talking about that. I want to get back to that. In terms of this, look at him right there. For all the criticism he's taken this season, over the last 3 weeks, he's been nothing but solid. He ranks in the top 10 in the NFL in touchdowns, yards per attempt, completion percentage, and most importantly, and here's the key, the Bears have gone 3-0. So bringing back in Adam, too. Adam, Trubisky's been playing a lot better. And, sorry, we'll get to Adam in a second, but here's the thing. This is a critical game for him. How big is it for him if he wants to remain with the Chicago Bears? What needs to happen?
Well, I think he needs to just continue the trend that he has been on recently in terms of protecting the football, moving the chains, not turning it over, producing big plays down the field, and just executing within the context and within the confines of this offense, which, again, as I said earlier, has changed dramatically from what was first to start at the beginning of the year. This is not a typical drop-back passing attack anymore. This is now a play-action boot rollout.
The season at a time where Cleveland is on the docket and Cleveland needs to win the game. Cleveland could not get a more ideal time to get the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right now is the time. It's set up perfectly for Cleveland if it can control the virus that has spread through the organization. If it can do that, then Cleveland could be on the way to the postseason for the first time in almost 2 decades and obviously validate Kevin Stefanski as a prime candidate for the NFL Coach of the Year.
And controlling the virus has been the biggest wild card for every team this year. So I want to bring back in the guys. And, you know, Lewis, it's interesting. You played for the Browns the last time they won a playoff game. And I want to talk about the bigger picture on the Browns, but then I also want to focus on this. We saw last week Baker Mayfield, end of the game, didn't work out. Game on the line, close game against the Steelers, season on the line. Does Baker Mayfield pull it out?
Yeah, I believe he does. And I think it's more than just does Baker Mayfield pull it out. I think it's does this team stay on schedule and stay true to who they are? Because if they can, then Baker